So I've been wanting to get into stuff that's a little more advanced on this channel. I do a lot of beginner stuff, but let's do something that's a little more complicated. This is an oil painting, kind of like a peachy, purpley ocean scene. It is oils, but we're going to start with some acrylics. So here I have white, magenta, yellow, a light blue, a dark blue, and red. I'll list the exact colors I have here, but don't worry if you don't have them. Like usual, use what you have, especially for this because this is the underlayer. We're going to paint over this entirely. So I'm mixing up a little bit of a pink kind of color, adding a little bit of yellow there and lots of white because I want to just quickly sketch in my horizon line and blocking in the colors where we have our clouds. Choosing where my horizon line is right there. And I'm just kind of sketching it out. And see, I did one line and then I did a second one, just feeling where I want it to be. And then I've got not too much paint on my brush and I'm kind of just scrubbing in the shape of a cloud. I'll have one on one side, one on the other, almost touching, and then I add a little more yellow to my pink color so I can have some peachier clouds right below it. Now I'm mixing up a little bit of purple. I'm just adding a little bit of blue and a little more red to that pink we had, and I'm just scraping it right on the bottom of those clouds, just to show that there's a shadow there. That I'm filling in just below those clouds with a lighter pink to kind of show there is like a cloud cover behind those clouds, like maybe there's a storm that's distant. And now I'm mixing up a little bit of a teal kind of color, which is going to be our watercolor. I'm just kind of sketching that in, filling it in. I'm leaving some white spots you can see. That's going to be where foam is in our water. And there's a little bit of a purple there. It's just white. A little bit of white mixed into that teal and a little more like red or magenta. And I'm scrubbing it in. This is again where some foam's going to be. This color is weird and it's just off camera. Unfortunately, I mixed it just off camera. It's red, yellow, and blue, and we're making like an orangey, red, orange, brown kind of color. It's like a brown that's leaning a little more towards red, and this is going to be our sand. Don't worry if these colors aren't looking exactly like mine. They're just for us to work on top of. Now I have a little bit of a light peachy color because on the water here, we're going to have some reflections of the cloud in the sky. So I kind of made a color similar to what the clouds were, and I'm just kind of lightly scrubbing that on, just so we can see that there's some reflection of the clouds on the water. Now I'm mixing up a darker teal, because what I want to do is add a couple little shadows just under where the foam parts of our little waves are going to be, and in the back to show we have some waves happening. Added a little bit of white to that same teal, and now I'm kind of scrubbing in just a couple details of the water. I love the term scrubbing. I apparently think I'm scrubbing paint on. No strokes, just scrubs, apparently. I mixed up a super light blue to just fill in our background. It's actually pretty similar to that white. You don't have to do it, but I just did it just because I could. And now we're mixing up an orange here, like a little bit of a darker orange, just so I think we can get a little more detail going on the clouds. You don't really have to do this. You can leave this. We're just color blocking here. You don't have to go in with these details yet because we're going to go over them. But I'm using this color blocking as a guide for me when I do go in with my oils and to try and cover up white spots on the painting because it's a little complicated. When you work with oils, they take a long time to dry, and sometimes you'll paint with your oils and they'll be a little bit see-through, and so the white of your canvas will show through. So to kind of avoid that, I like to do a layer of acrylics and then do oils on top. That's why I'm doing this. And now we're going in to start mixing our exact colors with our oils here. So the oil colors I have here are white, ultramarine, cerulean blue, I think that's Indian yellow, Windsor red deep, magenta, and we're gonna mix up our colors. I like to mix all my colors in advance when I'm working with oils because they take a long time to dry, so I don't have to worry about them drying up. And I mixed up some light blues that kind of fade into a little bit of an orangey color. Now I'm mixing up some peachy pinks for our clouds. And I'm adding a little bit of blue to those peachy pinks to kind of mute them a little bit, add a little realism to them. I want to have those purple colors that are in the clouds as well, so I have that purple going in here. I got cerulean and red and magenta. I have like a darker version and I'm gonna have a lighter version. So this is the lighter version here that I'm mixing up. And of course we're gonna need our teals for our water. I have a couple variations of it. I'm doing a dark one, I'm doing a light one. It's gonna be ultramarine and red and yellow, which is honestly, those are the main colors that I use when I'm painting. And like a murky kind of purple, like a warm kind of light blue purple. These are all very subtle colors that I'm mixing in here. And then some colors too, like I'm sitting here and I'm trying to mix up my colors the best I can, but it often happens where I realize that I missed a color or that I don't love one of the colors I mixed up, so I go back and I fix it. And you can just mix along if you want to do that instead of just mixing it all up front. But here's a good place for you to maybe take a screenshot of the paints that I have here and take the time to mix them up on your own. I'm gonna need more orangey colors. I'm gonna need some yellowy colors for our clouds. Get it looking very peachy, very tropical. And that's the bulk of our colors. So then we're gonna start actually going in with our oil. So you might notice me tapping my brush on the corner of my palette. I have there a medium called Liquid. I love it. I don't use it super often, but it's the only oil medium I use. It helps with flow a little bit. So as I'm putting this like light blue on the sky there, it makes it just flow on really smoothly. As I'm doing that sky there, I'm doing the brightest blue at the top, and then I'm kind of moving it to a little bit of a yellowy color. It's very subtle, very, very subtle. But the subtleties are what make the difference between a beginner and advanced painting. Then I'm going in with some of those pinks, filling in that cloud there at the top, and then adding some shadow at the bottom with those purples we mixed up too. It's like peachy purple kind of colors, and I'm kind of taking my brush and slowly blending things. That's the great thing about oils, is that they blend super easily. So those wispy parts of those clouds that you're seeing are very fun to do because you can just take your little brush, even if it's a small one, and kind of swirl the sky color and the cloud together to make like a puffy blended kind of look. So again, doing the shadow on that other cloud, taking those purples, and then bringing that brighter pink in there too to kind of make it very pretty and vibrant. And make it look like it's textured. The brighter pink colors are where light is hitting that cloud more, and the purpley colors are where our shadows are. And then we're gonna start on the clouds that are just below, which are actually clouds that are slightly more in the distance than those pink clouds at the top. I'm taking the orangey pink color and kind of outlining our shadows a little bit first. And I'm like adding a little bit of pink, using a little bit of orange, doing the thing where I'm blending it in a little bit with the sky, just making it a little bit wispier. And then I'm starting to fill in with a little bit of that lighter orange color to the spots that are more highlighted parts of the cloud. And then I'm mixing up a purpley pink kind of color there and starting the shadowed parts. Like the real shadowed parts, the bottom parts of our cloud is where we're putting this purple. It's a similar one to the purple we had up on the clouds above, but just a little bit lighter. And then going with our bright pink there and kind of scrubbing in some more. There's a lot of layers of shadows. There's like shadows and midtones. The bright pinks seem to be more of a midtone color that I'm using there. And then we have that nice orange color filling in as part of a midtone too. And then you'll see that I'll start to go in, eventually, darkening up the shadows. So I added a little more blue to that purple, so it's just a little more contrasty with the orange. And I'm filling it in so you can see the very bottoms of the clouds, and then adding that lighter purple in the distance to show there's like a cloud cover back there, like there's a blanket of clouds covering the ocean. And then I'm darkening the horizon part of it. The closer it is to the horizon, the darker I want it to be, to show that there's like a storminess happen back there. And then making a little more contrast, added a little ultramarine to that purple to darken it a little more. And now I'm adding my highlights with that yellow. Kind of mixing it in with a little bit of that orange just to get the color that I perfectly want, blending things as I go. Highlighting it slightly. And then I added white to that yellow to really get these highlights going. Create a lot of contrast and a lot of detail in the puffs of the cloud. I'm just taking my tiny little brush there. It's just a tiny little detail brush. I've been using it most of the time. And I'm adding in tiny, tiny little puffs. Tiny little puffs on that cloud. And I'm taking quite a while to do this. This painting in total took me 2.5 to 3 hours. So obviously, if you're working on this and you can't go as fast as I'm painting right now, no stress. This is my favorite part. I take a big dry brush that's very soft and I very, very gently start to blend out the details of my cloud. Not too much, I don't want to lose them, but I want those clouds to have a very fluffy look and like all those colors are blending together. It makes a really, really beautiful effect. I love it so much. Now I'm taking that darker teal that we mixed up and drawing in our horizon line with a flat brush there. Just scraping in with that darkest color and filling that in. That's where our water is meeting the horizon. And I'm taking a little bit of lighter color to fill in the rest. And now I want to add some tiny little highlighted details where the light is reflecting off that water. So I want the color to be reflective of the sky, and back there it's going to be very purple. So I'm taking purple and maybe a little bit of that orangey color with my tiny detail brush, just putting in tiny, tiny little strokes. Very carefully, taking my time, adding the details where I want. Then I'm going with my light blue from the sky, and I'm kind of just putting a little bit of color, a little bit of that light blue on the places where the foam of these waves is going to be. Just a little. And I'm even darkening it with a little bit of purple. This is where the water's crashing a little bit. And just adding in a couple more details where I want the wave to be textured, adding a little bit of that teal to show that it's got some bumps and lumps and splashes. And some details underneath those waves too, to have a little bit of shadow to show what the light's doing there. And then I'm taking a highlight color, so I'm just adding white to that light blue, and I'm starting to put on kind of in the same way that we did the highlights on the cloud, dabbing on that white. It's going to be a little, my brain wants to say crunchier. It's not crunchy, but it's going to be not quite as soft. We want it to look a little more rugged, a little more edgy, because the water's a little more chaotic than the clouds are. And then again, a little bit of shadow underneath those waves, just to show the depth of them, that they are kind of curved and they have a shadow to them. Now I'm taking that color, it's kind of like a mix of, it's like a lighter version of the purples from the sky and has a little more orange in it. We're just very softly rubbing that in. This is a very, very thin layer, so we'll be able to work on top of it. I'm using a little more purple on the one side, and then I'm adding a little more orange on the other side. And I'm adding a little bit of orange reflection in the middle of those two waves there, adding a little more orange reflection in the background of our way, way, way distant waves. And now I'm starting to put in the details of the water that's close to us, the little ripples that are showing up that are almost hitting the sand there. It's gonna be that teal color that we used in the background. Taking my my little tongue's all tied. Taking my detail brush and I'm just dragging it across kind of randomly, having it a little bit interspersed, not trying to make them very uniform, just having the water, I want it to look organic. And then when we take our flat brush, our flat dry brush here, we can just blend it all out so it looks real smooth. Oop, oh, I just hit my microphone. Whoops, sorry, not very good at recording. And now we have this foam that's starting to meet the water there. I just scrubbed it in a purpley kind of color, a little bit of a purple that we added a little bit of white to, added even a little more white to that, and started adding these details here with a little round brush that's pointed. And just also, in a kind of not very uniform way, scrubbing on these highlights. I added even more white here to have even more highlights, just as the water is kind of hitting the sand. And then a few more places on our water. Then I'm going in with that teal and kind of just making a little more definition in the water. And now I want to do that sand color. So this is a color that I didn't mix up before when we mixed up all of our colors. It's a very difficult color to mix, so take your time with it. But it's just blue, red, and yellow. That's it. You just gotta, and white. You gotta take your time to mess with it and get it to the colors you want. So I made a lighter version, just added more white to it, and a darker version where I just added less white to it. So that way I can go in with this darker color and just kind of create more texture in the sand. Make it look like there's streaks, like the water has pulled sand in some different ways, like there's like a couple valleys and stuff. And then I go even darker so I can create some of that shadow where that foam is connected to the sand. And just adding in some of those details, creating that shadow, defining some more of those streaks. Because the sand is wet here, so it's pretty dark. And it's going to be uneven, it's going to be bumpy. And then it's more detail time, so I wanted some more dark waves in the distance, so I'm taking that teal again with my tiny detail brush and just putting in all the details I want. This is the part where I really just start to look at my painting overall and see what I'm missing, see what I want to enhance, see what I want to brighten up, just find the things that I feel are going to make this painting really step up a level. So it's more of those details in the water, just creating areas where the little ripples are more shadowed. And now I want to create some more reflections of this water, like really bright, vibrant reflections. So I'm taking my yellow there, and I want to bring some of that color from that cloud down into the water. So I'm creating tiny little streaks. And then I also want to add a little more highlight to my waves there. So I'm taking, this might just be pure white. So we're keeping a light source in mind here. So we're keeping that highlight to the top left of our water, like we kept the highlight to around the top left of our clouds. Adding it to where the foam meets the sand as well. Just wherever I feel like, adding those details wherever I want. And kind of bringing the contrast a little bit higher on my highlights. So I'm just brightening them up. So it looks like that light that's reflected from those clouds is a little bit more sparkly on our ocean there. I'm going to do one last smoothing out with our dry brush. I'm bringing in a little more of that light sand color, just added more white to it, just create a little more detail and interest in that sand. And then this is our painting. It's all the way done. And I love how it turned out. This is more complicated, so if you try it, don't get frustrated, but it's a really fun and rewarding one. The full-length version of this tutorial is going to be up on my Patreon for my folks who decide they want to support me a little bit extra. It's a thank you I give to them because I could not be more grateful to people who decide to support me there. I would love to see you paint this one. I know it's a little bit hard, but I think you can do it. And if you can't do it the first time, you could maybe do it the second time or the third. Don't give up. Try this one. It might be one that you find makes you feel really good once you get into the swing of things. And I had a nice time, and I'll see you guys in the next video.